started to build it. Was it already there, Bruce, when you arrived from the Ukraine? You said you were imported. I'm thinking, were you carried there?
No, I came on a plane. I actually came from the UK, but I had a really big wake-up call because the guy that was supposed to meet me at the airport didn't show up. So that's a whole different part of my baptism by trial and error when I arrived, for sure. But all good. But hey, that was in 1994. So I.
Oh, okie doke.
It was
more American
built in
than
the
I am.
60s.
Oh, it was.
Nice.
Oh
Nice.
my goodness. Was anyone else imported? I came to Oregon at age 9 and I'm turning 63 this weekend. So, I mean, just because I was born in California, I don't feel like a Californian. I'm kind of, Parks and Rec. It's not where you were born. It's where you're from. I'm from Oregon. Anybody else imported? I don't know that anyone can beat Ukraine, but I'm interested.
Well, I'm originally from New York City. I was born and raised there, and then moved to California. Lived in the Bay Area for about 7 years, and then moved to Central Oregon in February of 2020. So it was right before the pandemic, and I love it here. Central Oregon is gorgeous. It's like it doesn't matter where you turn. You see beautiful snow-covered mountains, or you see the desert, or you see a lovely lush river, or you see the eastern part of the state, which is more drier. So it's like we've got it all here. It's quite beautiful.
I've heard Bend is the place to be.
I love Bend. Bend is amazing. In fact, Loretta came to visit. We met here on LinkedIn, and then we hit it off. We've met a couple of times on Zoom, and then she emailed me. She's like, "I'm coming to Oregon." I'm like, "Yay!" So I picked her up at the airport, and I brought her to Central Oregon because she was going to be spending time on the coast. So I was like, you have to see Central Oregon. Everyone always thinks of Portland when they think of Oregon.
That's right.
So we had dinner along the river. We saw a whole bunch of places. It was amazing.
We did Oregon in 30 hours.
That's right.
I love it. Oh, what a beautiful place to land, and you came coast to coast because Loretta, you're in Maryland. Is that right?
Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Yep. Laura, you are Southern Oregon, Rogue River Valley area.
That's right. I've been here. I was born here. I tried to move away for college, but I ended up coming back within less than 2 years. And my kids were born in the same hospital where I was born. And just basically have lived here, forever.
That's cool.
Nice. And Mary Beth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born and raised here in St. Louis. I went to the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, Mizzou. And so I've lived here all my life, except for my junior year in high school. I was an exchange student to Chile, South America.
Oh,
nice. That was an amazing experience.
That was back in the 70s. And that's back when when exchange students actually went for, not 2 weeks or a month or even a semester. I was gone for a year.
Yeah.
And it was quite an experience.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh.
For a junior high school? Yeah.
Yeah. I spent my junior year or 6 months of it in Bolivia, actually, as an exchange student. So that's
nice.
That was in 90 something.
My parents moved us. My parents moved us to Medellin, Colombia, when I was 14.
Oh yeah.
And we lived there for a year. Yeah, and then my mom brought us back.
That's cool.
Yeah.
No idea there was going to be so much of South America as part of today. I thought, it was going to be this and some business talk. And there's a reason. Hey, Kiki Cub and Ananira Harry have both chimed in. They're cheering cheering on what all you're going to talk about. Bruce, I'm going to break with tradition and I'm going to have gentlemen going first. You are absolutely surrounded.
I am.
So I'm wondering, why did I invite you? And more importantly, is importantly a word? Anyway, I'm fascinated by why in the world you said yes. Is there some secret reason why you said yes to coming in on aspects of aging?
Well, first of all, I'm lucky to be the thorn between so many roses, so that's good, especially with Valentine's Day.
He was raised right.
I was. No, I didn't practice that. That's just, I don't practice anything anymore. I'm just myself. So, the reason the topic intrigued me was that the last quarter of 2021, I was working and have been working closely with a Malaysian entrepreneur, and her name's Ferlin. And after a couple of different calls and live streams, we actually came up with a little motto, which was to live life young. And then fast forward to November, some of you may know Russ Hedge. I was actually in Australia doing a tour and meeting some people from LinkedIn and went to a conference there. And the morning of Thanksgiving there, which was not here, Russ Hedge texted me and said, "Hey, I've been diagnosed with cancer." And so we know, some of us know that story. Anyway, the point about that is I said to him, "Hey, I want to live life young daily in your honor." And then actually also on the same day, the guy that I used to work for in corporate also texted me and said, "Hey, I've been diagnosed with cancer too." So it was like, ding, ding, ding. This is a big wake up call because, we're all in a similar age space. And then the other piece about live life young is that, how do you prove that? Well, I've been taking advantage of, the healthcare system here. Not that it's always good, but the one thing that is good is I get to get a nurse practitioner come to visit me at home for regular checkups, which is awesome. I don't have to go anywhere. And in my last test results, my internal biological age is only 54. So it's like, okay, that's how do you prove that you can live life young? Well, you can do it both mentally and physically. So long story, but that was the catch towards and I wanted to share to people. It's it's a decision. I make a decision to either live life old or live life young. It's a choice, and I choose to do that daily. So that's it.
This started with your wonderful relationship with
Right.
a person in Malaysia.
Correct.
And I feel like it's being redefined as you are in interactions that impact you.
Yes.
And here you are living life young in honor of, it's fascinating to me. Oh, and Rosalind Marshall Jones has also chimed in on today's gathering. I always think of this as a picnic table, and I threw out a cover on it and put a basket on top, and we're just in a park together, and people are coming over and just going, I couldn't help but notice that you were talking about something, and I've thought about that recently because of my experiences or interactions or book I'm writing, whatever. Oh, that was a great segue, Laura.
Well, if I may,
I didn't do that on purpose.
If I may, Kristen, I'll close the loop because next week on Russ Hedges' show, Ferlin and I are actually going to be guests together. So that will close the loop in terms of not only his involvement, but Russ is a smart guy. So he invited us to come talk about Live Life Young and how that has impacted us daily. So Ferlin and I are going to be on together next week. So that's going to be fun.
He has so many shows. Which day?
It's February 22 from memory. So.
Okie doke. So exactly 1 week from now, and maybe his show with my husband. So that's going to work out because I'm almost always there. I love chatting, even if it's with my fingers.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
I'll pass the picnic basket.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Laura and Patty, we purposefully did this very intentionally because Patty, you came on a number of weeks ago and then said, "Ooh, can I come back? Because I'll let you run with it, both of you."
Awesome. Well, thank you. Just so you know, actually, Loretta wrote the forward. We are releasing a new book.
That's right.
It's coming out Friday. It's called Brick by Brick Bonding Tools for Family Care, Bonding Activities for Seniors Living with Alzheimer's and Dementia. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share like my story because it'll talk about like why I'm doing what I do. So for decades, I worked at a job where I was miserable, but I had no choice. Today, I have a job I love, but I'm working with people who have no choice. Along the way, I've learned an important lesson. I became a single mom when my daughter was less than 2 years old. I was fortunate to get a $25 an hour in an investment bank in New York City, but the type of work I did, I really didn't like. But I had great benefits, so I kept working there. When my daughter was on her own and no longer on my health insurance, I quit. Now I didn't have to fit into anyone else's template. I moved from New York to California and I chose a new profession. I became a Lego artist and started a business sharing the joy of Lego with others. The feeling of regaining my agency was exhilarating, but I stumbled onto something unexpected. I had a friend who managed a memory care home for people living with Alzheimer's and dementia, and I asked if I could do a Lego session with her residents using Lego Duplo bricks and pieces, and she loved the idea. I didn't know if it was going to work. At that time, I didn't know anybody else who was doing this sort of thing. So I stood in front of a group of about 6 seniors in wheelchairs around a dining room table. I introduced myself, and not a single person looked up. They had lost their agency to a disease. In the early stages, they start to lose agency over their own minds and memories. Then they lose their agency over even the smallest decisions, like what to eat, what to wear, what time to go to bed. But I continued with the session and I got down onto their level and I spoke to each individual one by one. I spoke to Mary, who was about 80 something years old. I asked her if she was a dog or cat person, but Mary had lost her ability to verbally communicate. Her only response was, "Thank you." So I held out a Duplo Lego dog in one hand and a Lego cat in the other to let her choose, but she had lost that ability to even make that choice. So I gave Mary a Lego flower. Mary took the flower from me, held it in her hand, and examined it. It was something new in her life that had become institutional and routine. I showed her how she could stick the flower onto a base plate to make a little scene. And then Mary did something I had never seen anybody else do before. She put the flower upside down on the table and spun it around like a top. At that moment, in that dining room, in that sliver of time, Mary had agency again. She did something for herself. She did something other people didn't expect of her. Maybe she didn't even expect it from herself. I could see it on her face as it lit up in a huge smile. Her eyebrows thinned and raised. She clapped her hands together in a moment of pure joy. In that moment, I knew that it worked. It worked. It worked to restore joy. It worked to give Mary back a small piece of creativity she used to enjoy. And it wasn't just Mary. I'd done it with hundreds of seniors over and over again, giving them this moment where they restore their agency. And the happiness lasts long beyond that session. Even though they can't remember my name, maybe they can't even remember sometimes their own families, they remember the Lego lady. They remember the joy they had for that moment. That's what inspired me to write the book, Brick by Brick Bonding. I want to help families, caregivers, grandchildren, great grandchildren to experience that same moment of joy with their loved one. It might look like they're just playing with bricks and pieces, but what they're really doing is restoring a moment of agency and building memories.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Listening to you. Oh my goodness, I want to read your book. Just listening to your description. I see this person. Oh,
it was just amazing circumstances, right? Sort of circumstances. COVID happened and then everything stopped, right? So I decided to take the experience that I learned and write a book. I wrote my first draft, or I wrote a couple of drafts. That I met Laura Wagner, who was my editor, who got me on a routine. And then shortly thereafter, I met Laura Herman. Laura Herman, I mean, was amazing. She was in a transition in her life, and I told her about my book. I sent it to her, and she just like ran with it. And she was like, this is why it's working, because she's got 20 plus years in the dementia field. So she just knew why this was working. And I went in there instinctually, right? Just like, this is my love of Lego. I'm just going to share it with a group of people and see where it goes. And it was a huge hit, right? Then a few months later, I meet Loretta, and she was just amazing. And she was doing the same thing on the East Coast. So we just were kindred spirits, and we just connected immediately. So yeah, thank you for having us on your show. This is amazing.
oh, and Yolanda is just soaking this in and making comments. And I just saw her on Russ, and my husband, D. Scott Smith, motivational listener, is also my hubby / producer. So he's making these little things happen. Can you imagine if I was just talking to people without all of this around it, and the framework of knowing who has crisscrossed with who? I was so excited to know that two people met on LinkedIn, because we've actually driven to Portland to see people that we met on LinkedIn. Oh my goodness. You know, Mary Beth, I think you have stories like Patty. And Laura, you brought, Patty said instinctually, and she kept saying agency. That is a new use of the word agency for me. So, Mary Beth, I'm just getting you warmed up. Laura, you had expertise, training, a different set of wonderful tools and ways of connecting one thing with another. Agency, is that a new usage of the word for you as well?
I encountered it maybe a few years ago, and it's one that the general population really doesn't use that often, but it's basically the opposite of helplessness. So when somebody is helpless, they don't have agency, and when they have agency, they're able to make their own choices, make their own decisions, and it is something that people with dementia sorely lack in many cases. However, that is more that's a result of the circumstances and how we're, not how we're struggling to support them. When somebody with dementia is properly supported, they can live a very, very good life, very good quality of life. It's difficult to, support somebody, with or without dementia to that extent. But we're learning as a society, we're learning more and more about how to do that and how important it is. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely making some strides. But yeah, I was just so thrilled. It really felt rather like fate to run into Patty on LinkedIn, and it's just been an amazing journey together. So yeah.
Amazing.
What's the name of the book? Yes.
Brick by Brick Bonding. Yeah, it was an amazing collaboration. And I want to mention a couple of things. Agency, right? The loss of control, right? It's unfortunate. They just lose their ability to make choice. And with Lego, there's a perfect opportunity to be able to make choice without, consequences, right? There's no consequences with working with Lego, except maybe dropping it on the floor and stepping on it, right? But one thing that I also wanted to mention that I'm sorry, your name is not on the screen, so I don't know. Bruce, is it?
Yes.
That you had said, which I think is super important, and I really focus on this in the book, is about making a choice, right?
Yep.
As caregivers,
Mhm.
is such hard work. I mean,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming, it's challenging on so many different levels. But when we make the decision to be a caregiver and to
Mhm.
do the best that we can, doesn't mean that every day is going to be perfect and you're
Mhm.
not going to be faced with challenges. But when you make that choice that I'm doing this because I love the person I'm taking care of, or I'm taking on this responsibility, you can make the choice to make a good experience.
Mhm.
Right? A lot of people suffer from, because it's really challenging, there's so many emotional things and circumstances that occur when you're a caregiver. And a lot of people face a lot of resentment and anger and sadness and grief, that it's really challenging. But if you accept that this is what's going to happen, you can move through that and have a positive experience, right?
Yep.
Even with all those emotions, tied in together. You could have a meaningful experience even though you're angry and you're sad and you're depressed and you're, all the emotions above, right?
Mhm. Yep.
One of the reasons why it is so important to choose to be a caregiver is that the people who feel that they don't have a choice in the matter have a much higher rate of burnout and just poor outcomes, poor mental and physical health for themselves. The person that they're caring for, their carees tend to fare not as well also. And so one of the things that's very important is to consciously make that choice. And we do have a choice. I mean, even if you feel that the other option isn't acceptable, I mean, there are a lot of people who do choose not to take care of their loved ones. And maybe that means, at an extreme
Mhm.
example, that their loved one is going to wind up on the street. That's still your choice. You're still choosing to be a caregiver to prevent that. So taking that conscious angle at it can empower you to already set you up to have a much better outcome. And then from there, it's another series of choices. Okay, I'm choosing to be a caregiver. What how am I going to set this up so that my caree can fare the best, and so can I. How am I going to choose to set up my support system? How am I going to choose to take care of my own needs consciously as well as those of my caree? If you only had a tiny portion of food each day, you wouldn't give it all to your caree because you would starve in a matter of days or weeks. So you would have to take some of that food for yourself. And so our needs go beyond the needs for shelter and food and water. They also extend to social interaction and meaningful activity and choice and agency and control. And the list goes on, but it is really important as a caregiver, especially somebody who's a long-term caregiver or caring for someone with dementia, to make a conscious plan for, like, okay, how am I going to meet my needs as well as my carees, because we're really in this together.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So a person who finds themselves in a position that they could provide more care, what are they doing with their agency? And you are all providing how they can use their agency for their caree, the recipient of assistance,
Mhm.
and for themselves. I like that food, you wouldn't give it all to the other person. It's
Mhm.
like they will have a husk of a person left to enhance their life. So both need to be enhanced.
Yeah.
And another person who provides a way to discover how you can use your own agency for someone is Mary Beth, who I have watched her for a couple of years now on LinkedIn and what she posts out. And I'm always amazed. And the countenances, the way they change from picking up the tools they use
Mhm.
to and it's like you're looking at two completely different people in kind of like a before and after picture. I love it. Oh my goodness. Mary Beth, who is in St. Louis near that arch. Can you
Right.
do you we have several minutes left, thank goodness, because Loretta's here too. Go for it, Mary Beth.
Yeah, well, no, I'd love to tell you about it. Well, my the name of my business is Artfully Aging, and I started doing art with seniors in 2009. I've been an artist all my life, and I kind of I didn't plan to start working with seniors. I had a burning desire to do something to make a difference in people's lives in a meaningful way, and using my art, I started. It was back in the recession of 2009, 10, 11, those years, and I got a little gig in an adult day center doing a watercolor group, which I had never done. I'd done watercolor for years, but not teaching it or with seniors. And if through my own personal experience, I realized the therapeutic nature of it, of doing it, and the joy I personally got. And so it was kind of an easy segue to start doing it with seniors. But I quickly realized that it was having such an impact on them. And I developed a program and working with all levels of senior care, actually using the same program. And it just depends who you're working with. You change your approach and your expectations. You do the same project, but you change your approach and what you expect. And, you water it way down. If it's advanced memory care, it could be all the way from, okay, pick up the brush, put it in the water, put some water on the green paint. You could water it down, and you have the level. It really does require a lot of patience. But all the way to, can I help you? Can I help you? Can I hold? Oh, yes. Can I hold your hand and help you? So can we do this together? And yes, but I would never just take their hand and just start helping them.
Yeah.
And people with dementia, they live in the moment. And so we could paint together, and I may hold their hand, and I have a technique for that. It's called hand over hand. And I will say, watch the paint go on the paper. Did you ever ice skate? Let's pretend we're gliding back and forth. And often they're like, oh yeah, I did that. And so it's like, okay, we're gliding on the ice, we're painting. And it just becomes a very joyful experience. But asking the whole way, every step of the way, asking if we can do this, if we can do that. And, if somebody else in the same group may not have the same level, they may be a little more higher functioning, where they I could cue and prompt them, like outline something in on the painting, and then prompt them to paint that in, and then away they go. They just need a little segue into the painting, and then they are ready to take off. So it's so many benefits for people with dementia, and engaging them, and then not to mention the reminiscing that can take place around just that project, the subject of that project. And that can take on a whole nother little part of the activity. So it's a great, it's been as fulfilling for me as I hope it has been for all the different residents and participants who I've worked with over the years. Yeah.
Oh, Mary Beth, I can attest. I noticed on LinkedIn you've been posting people, some of whom I recognize, talking about how it worked, how it improved
Oh, yeah.
an afternoon for residents, for a mother-in-law. And I can recommend that as a person caregiving or working in an environment, hearing a voice saying, "Can I help you with this? Have you ever gone ice skating?" It is just a wonderful mental break for other people around and a reminder of how you can practice patience, let alone the other people that might be sitting at the table, like what Patty experienced initially with those 6 people, hearing a person saying words, and you can guide with your voice, and we're going up and then back down, and just this, oh, there's a feeling that's growing in me to do that. Oh, I do have a request. Have you ever done, I don't know, things unusual like a saxophone or a truck with the hood popped and a big, I think it's called a Hemi engine or something like that? Have you ever created for residents anything like unusual like that, or have you been challenged to?
No, I wouldn't say I have. Most of our subjects are, I did develop and I hate to call it a curriculum. That sounds kind of cold, but
No,
I
but
have
it's really
developed a
helpful.
program and a whole
Yeah.
array of projects
Mhm.
to choose from, and they cover every, holiday season, landscapes, animals. We have a giraffe,
Oh,
and
I would like that.
that's a great reminiscing, stories,
Mhm.
trips to the zoo and maybe a safari trip, and that's a little unusual.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
When I think of art, my mind goes a few different directions,
Mhm.
but the best one is just the hallways of a place that I worked for. They sent me into individual homes, but they had every level of care available on their property. And to see these pieces of art displayed and changed often just spoke to my heart as a person who has an aging parent, and just imagining that that would come back into their life
Mhm.
after years and years of being a parent and working and maybe dealing with medical things. What a wonderful break from, did I take my
Right.
pills?
And the
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the display you spoke of, that is a really important piece, because then the residents can see their work on display,
Yeah.
or the client, if it's a home setting or if it is a care center, it doesn't matter. And then visitors can see it and talk about it.
Mhm.
It's got that's a whole other piece to it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So my program, though, I was going into centers in St. Louis, and that's how I built Artfully Aging. And then, of course, when COVID hit, everything shut down. So the challenge was, how do we continue to serve without going into the buildings? And once we kind of figured that out, then it became, well, we could serve everywhere, and develop the programming to train the trainer, if you will, and the caregivers or activity life enrichment directors, training them to all these things I'm talking about here, putting that into a kind of training so they can all use the program.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Can I briefly answer the
so
question that you posted, Christine? Someone had asked it, or it probably was your husband. Someone asked it, yeah, is it
Oh, yeah.
frustrating? I never found it frustrating. I would have seniors building, they would make this beautiful whatever it was. And then, a few minutes later, I'd be like, wow, that's amazing that you made that. And they'd be like, I didn't do that. Somebody else did
Mhm.
that. And I'd be like, no, sweetie, you did that. And I kind of have to remind them. And they were like, really? And I just thought it was funny and, never really took it personally or, it was fine. It is what it is. And I think we talk about it, expectations is like when we have expectations, that's really what hurts us. So I tried not to have expectations when it came with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, right? I met them wherever they were. And like I had a gentleman, every week we had the same conversation for over a year. Same exact conversation, same restaurant. Oh, remember that restaurant in Half Moon Bay? Yes. Oh, what great clam chowder they had. Yes, it was the same exact conversation. And it's like, that's fine. That didn't hurt me, doesn't hurt him. He remembers something and he had a conversation about it. That's all that mattered. Right. But I want to give Loretta a chance because she's amazing. Oh, Laura, please.
Just
yes.
Add on to that really quick as well, because I also want to hear what Loretta has to say.
Yes.
But I think as far as the frustration, it can be very, very frustrating, like Patty was saying, if you have expectations or hopes or the grief that, so someone who's a family caregiver or someone who is maybe a professional caregiver who works a lot with somebody and is watching their decline and they're really invested in this person being able to function at a certain level and now they're not. There's all this emotional loss that's going on and they want them to do it a certain way, and that's where that frustration comes in. So that mindful acceptance, that recognizing, okay, this is just where we are right now, that is the key to reducing that frustration. And it doesn't mean it's easy, but it's very important. And it's possible if you do, give yourself the tools and the opportunity to process those emotions, allow those emotions for what they are, and then just allow your person to be where they are.
Right. I just want to add on to that. I think acceptance is really important.
Yeah.
Accepting the current state of their condition and accepting, truly accepting that. And I think that goes a long way. Sometimes, yes, they don't remember. They might say, I didn't do that. But it's beautiful. And I'm like, well, you did do it. And it's beautiful. Something about living in the moment, in a strange sort of way. Don't we all try to, live for today and live in the moment? And for people with memory loss, sometimes it just is, they are living in the moment. Completely in the moment. That's a strange twist on a way to think about it. But
yeah,
Loretta, we can learn from a person whose agency is here and not boom, 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 multitasking. We can learn a life rhythm that we lost after our youth. Talk about living life young. So Loretta, just tell us anything that you want to, and I'm really going to just give you the table for the rest of our time.
Be careful doing
Ladies
that.
and gentlemen.
I tell you what, man, this has been so great. I was not having the best of mornings. And so coming on here, I was like, oh, it's time to log on. So you come on here and, I'm a firm believer that Lego can fix anything. So there you have that. And so it's just been a joy to join this group. And I would say, Mary Beth, I get up in the morning to see what you painted yesterday. So I look for the pictures. I do. I really do. It is just the coolest thing watching other artists on, LinkedIn. And so the first thing I do want to address is kind of Patty's comment about us meeting and how we got there. I speak all over the country about Lego and something called Lego Serious Play. And so I had been invited to go across the pond to share about why I'm doing this with, seniors with dementia. And they're like, well, you're the only person doing it. I'm like, I cannot be the only person doing it. And so I get online, I'm thinking, and I even put woman. I even put the word woman in my search, looking for other people who did that. And Patty pops up, and there's this picture of her, and I'm like, ah, you know, I go crazy. And I get on the message, and I send her a thing. I'm like, listen, you don't know me from Adam, but you know, you're interested in, you know, getting on a Zoom call. So we do that. And she said 3 or 4 times. And then I'm going to Oregon to visit my cousins to see nature and all that. And I realized, according to her profile, she lives in Oregon. So I'm like, hey, how far you live from Portland? And so she says she'll come. But this is how much we love what we do. And so, you know, then she says, well, stay at my house. So I'm telling my friends who, you know, and as a widow, everybody follows me like, because I'm traveling alone. So everybody is concerned about where I go. So people are like, let me get this right. You're going on, you know, somebody you met on LinkedIn to talk about Legos and spend the night at her house. I'm like, listen, I didn't get the serial killer vibe from her in any of my conversations. So I'm going to go. But that story, you know, being able to talk about my mom. And the first day, just like she said, we just got to know each other. We hiked. We watched waterfalls. We went to a Native American spot. I mean, we just had a thing. And then we got to the point of our talking about what we, both love. So in my case, it wasn't a friend that had a senior center. It was my mom. And my mother and I had a lifelong connection with Lego bricks. She got me my first set when I was 5. And throughout our lives, my mother was she was very un-Loretta-like. She didn't like people. She didn't talk a lot. But how you could get her to talk was with the Lego bricks. It was as if Lego helped her to find her words. It's kind of as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, and fast forward a whole lot of years, in 2006, that when she was originally diagnosed with dementia. And, we didn't have a good experience with the doctor that day. That's a whole nother seminar in and of itself. And so she was very distraught, as most people would be. So we get to the car. We leave hurriedly and we get to the car. And I ask her, well, how are you feeling? So no words, just, distraughtness. And so I have Lego bricks everywhere. So I have Lego bricks in the car. So I get out our little car set of Lego bricks, and I have this lap thing for DC traffic. You need a lap table so she can build and occupy her mind doing DC traffic. And I asked her to build how she was feeling. And she took one of her little Lego minifigures out of the bag, and she popped the head off the body. And she held up the rest of the body. And she said, I feel like in a few years, I'm going to lose my head. I put that on LinkedIn and people went crazy. Like, oh my God, what a profound way for her to express what she believed the future was going to hold for her. But listen, I'm a joyful kind of girl. So the only thing you can think of to say, she's your mother. So the only thing you can think of to say is like, listen, I don't have any idea, no expectations. That's on all my slides. How you survive this disease is by having no expectations. And so I had no idea what the future was going to hold, but I made one promise to her, which I kept for 16 years. And that was we were going to have joy every day. And we did that. On the last day of my mother's life, January 31st of 2022, she had her hands around Lego bricks. That's how I want to die. And so my mother had also taught us that when you find something that works, in this case, building with Lego bricks throughout everything. Every time we had to talk about something difficult, we did it with Lego bricks. When she no longer could live alone, I built a new home with some Lego bricks and explained to her the little safety aspects of why she could no longer live alone. She didn't understand it till we got the Lego bricks out. She thought she was being punished. And so, we did everything difficult via Lego, and it was just so much fun. So she had taught us when you find something that works, you share with other people. So that's how I started doing Lego with lots of other people. And at first it was just, kind of like Mary Beth. I went to a couple of senior places near my house, and it kind of started that way. And for most of my adult life, I also used it in my security career, but that too is another story. But I had been watching something called Lego Serious Play for a long time. There's a little more money than I wanted to put out. But when my mother forgot who I was in 2014, I signed up because I'm saying I'm hoping I can take away from this facilitation course more strategies to use with mom. And so my husband drove me to Charlotte, North Carolina. And one of the inventors of Lego Serious Play was the facilitator. It doesn't get much better than that. And I took the course, and it just has 4 parts to it. You know, you give them a task, they build, everybody shares what they built, and then we all reflect on what we have seen and heard. So originally, I didn't use that aspect of it with the folks with dementia. I used it for the caregivers or carees, however you want to. So I used it a couple of different ways. So for caregivers, especially during COVID, I felt as if I was, giving them respite. And I think Patty mentioned tons of emotion that you get from the people building. So I wanted the caregivers to be able to release some of that emotion. So we built joy, we built hope, we built resilience. And now I'm doing resilience in some nursing homes because some of them have not bounced back in terms of, getting their strength back after the nastiness of several years of COVID. And so it was all about the caregivers at first. And then I started doing just with the seniors. So in the early stage, you can still give them a task. Build your favorite holiday, your favorite vacation, your favorite school memory. And boy, those are funny. But we're still this. Just because you have dementia doesn't mean your bucket list goes away. I asked.
Oh, I like that. Just because you have dementia.
Yeah, just because you have dementia don't mean you don't have a bucket list. What do you still want to do while there is time? Go for it. Do your thing.
Yeah.
And so I make my own kit. Lego makes a kit for Lego Serious Play. And I have played around with it, but now I'm using my own kit. And guess what the best pieces in the kit are? They get either a small or a large Lego heart. Look at that. Because as caregivers, they give a lot of love and they receive a lot of love. And so that's everybody's favorite piece, bar none. And so I want that, sort of hope and all that. And I also ask the caregivers to build their superpowers. And some people say, I don't have one. Yeah, you do. Build it right now. And so they start building. And at the end, they're all like supercharged. And I think somebody used the word transform.
Loretta, I have to interrupt you and say, please come back and be first. Please come back and be first. I have lots of empty spots later in March or whenever. Oh my goodness. I am just drinking this up.
Yes,
I just everything that everyone has said is making a difference. Loretta, you weren't having a great morning. Laura's cat came on screen. I thought mine was too. Mary Beth, I want to talk about the arch because I never got to go up there. There was a reason why we were in St. Louis, very specifically. Bruce Carnahan, simpler, faster, better. Patty Mobricks. There's a book coming out, Brick by Brick Bonding. A lot of you have books. When I post this, make sure that and I'll tag you and make sure that you go in and let people know what wait a minute. That host didn't let them finish. I want more. But I got to be nice to my hubby producer. He's got stuff coming up. I've just, I want more. I don't always get what I want, but I will later in March. I tell you. Okay, everyone, happy day after Valentine's.
Bye.
Those pink hearts really finished us up well.
It's all about
Very
that.
fun.
meet
Thank
everyone.
you. So
Thank
good.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great seeing you all. Bye.